It's 5:30. I've got everything going. I believe we're recording and we are live. Sam, if you want to turn on your camera for us, you can hear me. You can't hear us.
And Roger, you know, if you just click on any of the city hall images, right click on it, right click, and then you can hide non-video participants, and that way we can see.
Oh, okay.
You just scroll down to that. There you go.
Oh, there we
Now
go.
just see who's on camera.
Oh. Okay. That's Sam. There's Sam.
And was Jackie on?
Never heard from her. Never heard from her. I heard from Andrea, she wasn't gonna be able to, and then Sam said he was gonna be here virtual, and then Amber texted and said she had another meeting that she was gonna try to get on.
Should I have responded if I was coming live?
No, you're fine. No. Okay. Just as long as you're coming, you're good. Okay, so Sam, if you wanna, can I bring him
You
in?
can chat him. You can't. He has to turn on his
Okay.
camera, but you can chat. He may not be at his
Yeah, that's true.
device yet.
Okay, why don't we go ahead and get started since we.
Okay, I'd like to call the meeting of the Parks and Rec Advisory Board to order Monday, July 10th. Roger, you have some comments?
Thank you. We want to remind people on the Zoom meeting that the meeting is being recorded and broadcast on the city's YouTube channel and cable channel 25. Please remember to mute yourself during the meeting when you're not speaking. And I don't think we have anybody on that's from the community. But if they do get on, we will make sure that they're aware of that. The chat function for the public meeting is disabled. All chats will go directly to me. Unless you're participating in the meeting, please turn off your video. This allows for active member participants to be seen on screen. You'll also be able to hear the meeting. When you are participating in the meeting, please turn your video on. If you have any trouble, you can send me a chat. And again, I'll just request Sam, if you're on, to turn your video on so you'll be part of the meeting throughout. The city reserves the right to mute people or turn individual videos off to minimize distractions during the meeting. Turn it back over to you, John.
Okay, so our first order of business is to approve the minutes from the June 12th, 2023 meeting. Are there any comments about the minutes? Any concerns? We have a motion to approve. I'll make a motion.
I move. Ballerina.
Well, second, been moved and seconded to approve the minutes. All in favor, say aye, or raise your hand. Okay, good. So that's passed. We don't have any public comment, I guess.
We did not receive any written comments.
Okay.
There's nobody here in the room
There's
either.
nobody transparent.
No. First time in a while.
Okay, let's go to our agenda items. The fireworks and Summerfest 2023. Bring us up to date on that, Porter.
Sure. Summerfest was a fun and successful event at the Douglas County Fairgrounds on July 3rd. We didn't really know what to expect since we'd never done this before, but we had 5 bands playing music in the arena area. We set up a stage. People came and trickled in throughout the day. We had 500 people that showed up. The grass area in the fairgrounds was just packed with cars. And we know through social media that people also watched from a ring around, you know, in their neighborhoods and that type of thing. So lots of people there. We had Free State was there selling beer inside the fenced area. Our bands were very successful. We have to say thanks to Lawrence Music Alliance for their help in helping us coordinate that and put all that together. And Rick Averill was our fantastic MC for the night, top hat and all, and he was great. And ultimately, it was just a really great event, and the fairgrounds worked out well. Oh yeah, I'm sorry.
Let me real quick. I forgot to share screen.
Go ahead and share.
There is, I am trying to figure out.
Yeah,
what
for
their
those who
screen
aren't
is
there,
here.
it'd be nice to see some images of what, so I put these together for everybody.
There we go.
So you can see in the top, that's closer to the fireworks, not quite fireworks time, but we had people in all of the seating areas around the arena. The stage is down on the right there, down in the arena. Kids playing, sitting on the concrete blocks down there, having a great time, people dancing. And this actually increased steadily between, I'd say, 8:30 and 9:30. We had a ton of people show up just for the fireworks and the last band, which was really great. There's Rick Averill in all his glory. And we also say thanks to our sponsors who are listed there on that banner. The Lead Center provided some funding, T-Mobile, Pretzels, our local pretzel group, obviously Free State, Lawrence Alliance Confluence, who's doing our comprehensive plan, gave us some funding for this as well. And of course, the JCs for the great fireworks show and Explore Lawrence. Some of the bands down below you can see, and if you go to the next slide.
Oh, I didn't know there was more, sorry.
More.
Is that it right there?
I think that's it. So just showing some of the music and bands. You see some kids dancing down there. It was really delightful. So the only regrets are it was hot and the sun is really sharp there. So we're thinking about how we might be able to make adjustments so it's not quite as severe. But beyond that, it was really great.
Valerie, no, what did the Humane Society conclude? I know they were trying to make the best of it.
Yeah. Thanks for reminding me too. So yes, I was in communication with Shannon Wells 3 weeks out, talking to her, trying to figure out how's this going to work out. In many ways, she, we didn't know exactly what was going to happen. The other thing is that neighborhood is fairly active in the fireworks.
Yeah.
So they kind of have to prepare for things anyway. So I think they were appreciative to know exactly when this was going to occur. So that's what we worked out with them was they were game. They had volunteers coming in. We actually donated a bunch of doggy treats to try to keep everybody happy. I think they were playing music and had sounds there to try to console the dogs. I have a terrified dog, so I understand. And throughout the event, I was texting Shannon to give her updates as to what was going on. So she was very appreciative to know exactly when the fireworks started, and exactly when they were over. Unfortunately, when we were cleaning up, there were a lot of big fireworks in the neighborhood. And I think that's what's frustrating when you don't know when it's going to happen. I have not yet reconnected with her, but I plan to do that and touch base with her and make sure I understand any issues coming through today. So that worked out as well as could be expected, I think. And she was delightful. She was very pleasant to work with. So and we're sensitive to the situation. I think I talked to probably 20 people who were complaining. Once they understood the fire, I think a lot of people thought the fireworks were going to happen right across the street from the Humane Society. We were actually in a field over in Venture Park.
So you're down.
So down the hill and further back, still it had an impact, but not nearly as close as I think a lot of people thought. So that helped concerns get ameliorated a little bit when I spoke to people.
We live in one of those neighborhoods too. It goes on, it starts in the weekend and goes on for 5 days.
I think a lot of people don't know that fireworks are illegal.
Or are aware and do it anyway.
I think that's.
Porter, thanks very much for your being so conscientious about these things. I mean, you are about everything. It's very much appreciated. Yeah, good. Okay, shall we move on to item number 2?
Prairie Park.
Prairie Park update.
Roger.
Yeah. Have to go back to that screen here.
There's Sam. You conquered the technology.
Sorry, Sam, I didn't read your note until just a minute ago, so we did see that you were updating.
Oh, it's all good. Yeah, it just wouldn't let me put the camera on until I update the app again.
It's so funny because I have a family Zoom that we do and mine ended up doing that. I wasn't on live stream though, so we don't have to deal with that.
All right, Mark Ecker, Assistant Director of Parks and Rec. We have a group we've been working with on a management plan for Prairie Park ever since we had kind of that incident with spraying the Prairie. We've worked with Kansas Biological Survey, Courtney Masterson. She has what's her group name? Native Lands Restoration. And then we're working with K-State Extension and also the field biologists from Johnson County Parks and Rec. So we have a little team. We've met over there a couple times walked them through. And so this is what we're going to try to attempt to do just this year. So July through December. What we want to address, and I can kind of brief all those notes for you, but up in the top there, we're going to hire native lands restoration to develop a volunteer program. They're going to go out and cut sumac out of the prairie. So sumac's an invasive species that's really taken over the north end of that. So basically it's going to be hand cutting and then treating the stump. So you actually use a little dauber to keep it from coming back. So they're going to take that on probably 2 or 3 work days where they'll bring volunteers in. It's going to be a huge commitment on their part. So we're actually paying them to run that for us. And then the next one is the monitoring of the plant species. Kansas Biological Survey set up a monitoring system out there. So they're using all their staff from Kansas Biological Survey /KU come out and actually look at the circles they've defined for monitoring, defining how many species are there, how many species were impacted, or species recovering. So, and then they're giving us reports. So we're also paying them for that. They initially set it up as a volunteer operation, but we're going to continue their services to keep basically the information coming. So those are the 2 things happening in the prairie. Outside the prairie, our staff's going to get a little more involved. So you can see the nature center there in the middle. There's one spot directly north of the nature center that's been basically taken over by invasive species. So a lot of honeysuckle, a lot of dogwood, there's some cedar in there. So we're going to go in and clear that so that you have a view out from the nature center to the prairie. It used to be that way, and just over time, it's just been taken over. So that's one little thing. We're going to get the nature center staff to put some interpretive signage out there so that everybody kind of understands what they're looking at when they stand for nature center, and also everybody knows it's a remnant prairie then. So that was part of the problem, that we had some staff issues that they didn't know that it was a remnant prairie. So if you look to the south of the nature center there, again, there's a couple of spots where we're going to try to clear up everything from the nature center out to the prairie. So those, it's all invasive stuff. And as we walk around with all the prairie experts, they're saying, yeah, this stuff does nothing to help the prairie. It's basically encroaching into the prairie. So this is going to be probably a fall winter project, that just trying to do those kind of orangish boxes down there. We have a problem south of nature center. The big wooden fence around the eagle cages are falling down. So we're going to have to get in there. So that little green strip there is what we want our foresters to go in and give us a clear path. What it'll do is it's dual function, so that that orange box above it will have a way to take stuff out and not go through the prairie. So in other words, if we go cut down a tree in there, we want to have a way to get it out and get it off the property. And the kind of the yellowish box down the middle, it was actually cleared at one point. There's actually a concrete circle around it. We cleared it, and we're going to resurrect the prairie in there. Honestly, from lack of management, that really just didn't work. So it's, again, grown up with all kinds of invasive stuff. So we're going to pull that down through this winter, get back down to the grasses that are naturally in there, and try to open that up as kind of more of an interpretive thing to the prairie itself. So then clear over on the right, I don't know, you kind of see it in yellow. We've been working with the Native Lands group to restore prairie back on that east side of the park. They've worked for, they started probably March, taking out some of the invasive species, some of the cedar, some of the just sapling trees. Then they reseeded, they introduced new plants. So we'll be monitoring that through this year and working with them to kind of, they do work days every few months to kind of keep working through that area. So they got a grant for that one. The cool thing about the 2 things in green that are in the prairie, we were actually able to work with Haskell University. They had USDA funding that they could put towards this project as a partner. So we're partnering with Haskell to provide some funding. So how do we pay Native Lands, and how do we pay Kansas Biological Survey? So far we were able to get grant funding for that. We're also looking at corporate sponsors that might be interested in tying into this. Derek's talked to a couple of folks that think they want to put money into the project. So as we continue with the Kansas Biological Survey, there will be a continuing cost on that. After this fall, this winter, then we'll assess what came back next spring. Then we know if we have to put more plant materials in. So Native Lands has talked about, we can go out and collect seeds from other remnant prairies, bring them back. But until we actually know what damage was done, we may not need to pay for that. It may come back by itself. So questions? It's a lot there, but
This is John Wazik, Advisory Board. I'm kind of an outdoors guy. When you're removing stuff, do you have to actually dig out the roots? Is that what you do?
yeah, so invasive species, so like the brush honeysuckle,
Yeah.
if we just cut it off, it'll be back and more angry in a year. So what we usually do, we'll cut it off and then we'll spot treat the stumps.
Yeah.
So we gotta keep them from coming back up.
Okay.
And then we monitor it, because sometimes that doesn't work and they still sprout up. So then if they sprout back up, we can go back in and vegetatively treat just this instead of, this.
Okay.
So it's not an easy process, but honestly, that whole east perimeter of the prairie is just covered with invasive species. So that'll be something we look at next year, is starting to push that eastern boundary back to where it used to be. And if you look at historical photos, you kind of see that the prairie is basically disappearing from invasion. So
You go reclaim seeds from that part?
maybe. So we were very encouraged by the first survey biological survey did, because there was still 270 plant species in the prairie, non-grass species. So in other words, what we sprayed didn't kill everything. That's good. So it's good that the spray didn't take effect and the timing of the spray didn't impact a lot of the species. There's some that we know that are pretty droopy and wondering if they'll come back. So we may have to go to a different prairie to pull those species back. But, they were impressed with the species variety after they had looked at what was sprayed, what the impact was, and what was still left. So by no means did we wipe out all the flowers and species in that prairie. So that's good.
Maryland Hull board member, is there going to be any press release or communication to the public about everything you're doing?
Yeah, I think what I wanted to do, so Courtney Masterson's going to do that kind of that volunteer thing. As she organizes that, I think we'll probably do a little bit of a press release to say, hey, here's what we're doing and here's how you can help.
Okay, good.
So I think that's probably our kickoff point. So the things we're doing now, so we're going to do the little box on the north end of Nature Center probably this week, just so people can start seeing there's a little bit of effort, not in the prairie, but in the adjoining property of the prairie. So yeah, the sumac removal is going to be big, because if you go over there, there's a lot of sumac just everywhere. And if you don't know what sumac, if you drive right past the Nature Center, right by the transformer, there's sumac that's probably 8 foot tall, has a little head on the top of it. And then you can start looking at that leaf and go, okay, how many plants are there? There's thousands and thousands and thousands.
And just thinking, thank you for that, Marilyn. When we remove sumac, people are going to see that. So we probably should be ahead of that.
Yeah, so what I'm announce that work day and say, here's what we're doing and why. Yeah.
I think that's a great idea, Mary. Yeah.
Well, and if you could get input from Ken Lastman or Courtney to talk about it.
Yeah.
So that it's not just you talking about it, that would be even better.
Yeah, and Ken's in our group too. I didn't mention him, but we have kind of a core group that we just said, hey, who wants to come? So we had a meeting over there with staff and if everyone wanted to be involved. So Ken's been more of a reporting mechanism, more so than active participant. So the folks from K-State Extension too, they've been providing more educational materials and saying, okay, here's what the experts at K-State say to do. Match that with what KU Biological Survey is doing, what Courtney does hands-on, just to kind of get a consensus that this is the way we should go. So.
Val Renault, board member, kind of two parts. So it sounds like the volunteer work will maybe go on through into the winter even.
I think, well, the first phase that we're paying for is the sumac removal. So she was anticipating doing that summer, fall. So we want to catch it while it's kind of up and active, because you have a better chance of daubing that herbicide on there and killing it. So I think that's probably August. She, again, getting people to volunteer was 100 degrees.
Right. And that's the
For
second,
maybe 80 degrees.
yeah, second part of my question was, does that, or is that something that can dovetail with, we talked about, like, there was interest from the people who lived in the area and having a group, you know, that, so I don't know. I mean, certainly they could volunteer, but I didn't know if we were still doing any activities talking to those people or if they have a representative.
I honestly, Courtney is so tied into the volunteerism that I really want to use her expertise to say, okay, here's what we want to do and who's available to help. But yeah, touching the neighborhoods and like Roger said, we can do a press release and say, hey, we're having a work day. If you're interested, let us know. So we know how many people are going to show up. But this is we could use a lot.
Yeah, because I just thought they seemed really motivated.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. That'd be great.
Okay, ready to move
Oh, I
on?
had a question. Jackie Becker. Yeah, so I wanted to know, you mentioned all the grants and Haskell. So moving into next year, as you said, when you start looking into as stuff comes up to see what's been lost, will we be writing more grants? Is there the possibility of grants? Is Haskell going to remain involved next year? And obviously we have to pay people to do some of these projects. So do you obviously we have to fix what's going on. How do then we create the flourishing redevelopment maintenance as we move forward?
So, yeah, Mark Becker. So yes, working with Haskell, they identified potential funding. So what they looked at is budget years. So they wanted to know what we needed through August. So we gave them that, but we also gave them what we perceive as a 5-year plan. And again, we don't really know where we're going yet, but they seemed interested in providing funding for multiple years. So I think that has potential. A little bit of it is, what are we going to need? If we're going to need seed collection, that's a big volunteer effort again. If we're going to ask the volunteer groups with removing invasive species, huge volunteer dollar that it takes to coordinate all that. So again, we're not really paying for the staff, we're paying for the coordination efforts and the expertise of going, cut that, don't cut that and that, but these two are fine. So I think Haskell seemed to be really interested in ongoing work with us and even putting their students out at our nature center, working on educational opportunities, all kinds of interesting collaboration, I guess. So that would be great if we can pull that off. So.
Okay, let's move on to the comprehensive plan update.
Me again. So we have our steering committee set up. We're going to provide a press release later this week, so that'll be public information. Confluence, our consultant team, is going to provide a presentation to the City Commission next Tuesday. It's the City Commission meeting during the study session. So we're working with them. They're preparing a presentation where they're going to cover basically the high, the 20,000 foot view of what they're going to do in their timeline and that type of thing. And so they're going to have that information. And you all got an email today. Thank you for asking. And then thank you for the brilliant idea of why not send this to everybody. So we did. So you all have that information. You have a web page set up, has all the background information and also a link so you can sign up for email notifications going forward. And then we'll be off.
So the actual consultation hasn't started yet, right?
Not yet. So they're going to be, so they're going to be here April or August 2nd and 3rd. And they will start looking at stakeholder groups at that point. So the steering committee will certainly be communicated with for that. So yeah, I've been on them because I didn't realize they hadn't been talking to the steering committee. So we'll get that rolling. And they'll start with that and then start working with those other focus groups in the community. And then there will be a lot of community engagement as part of this effort as well.
Okay.
Jackie Becker, can you explain more about the focus groups and how do people who weren't selected to the top 14 that got picked actually get involved? Or do they have to get involved through their organizations?
No, anybody, this is going to be very open, and that's part of the intention of the notification list and also the web page. So anybody interested, we certainly want to hear from as many people as possible, and especially anybody that has something they really want to share. So there will be community engagements with focus groups, but then there are also going to be general community engagements, both for Parks and Rec, as I understand it, and also the arts and culture side. And public will will be welcome to those events to gather, to share their insights so that we can gather that information as well.
So I'm asking about, because you said stakeholders versus public engagement. So is there a separation between the stakeholders, the group of the 14, and then public
Let
engagement?
me change my vocabulary.
Okay.
So stakeholder is one term. We're actually going to use focus groups.
Okay.
So there are key entities like the Parks and Rec. So I'm going to explain it as well.
You're not, I'm confused.
Parks and Rec Board would certainly be a focus group. And that doesn't mean though that you can't attend other community engagement meetings. So then the Art Commission be another focus group. The Art Center would be another focus group. Anybody representing those kind of primary areas we've talked about. We haven't gotten a list together yet. We're actually putting that. Roger has been helping me from past, and then we have information from various groups to put together a good focus group.
And typically what we've done, Jackie, is there'll be leadership. So the advisory board will be able to attend focus groups. Now, I don't know how they're going to set this up. They could take the whole group together, or you could basically pick from a list of meetings, and then it's a smorgasbord of people. So you would have somebody from the swim area, the arts, also the board, other city leaders, other even not necessarily our department staff, because I think they may be pulled out separate, but there may be leadership within the city that may be a part of one of the meetings that you may be in. Those will be the focus groups. So we look at all the different areas. We're compiling the list of like the CABA and all the kickball, the Cal Valley kickball will be a part of it. Everybody that's associated with Parks and Recreation. And then that becomes a challenge, is getting all those people lined up for meetings. And so that's where the input comes in, and then the public meetings as well. And I think we're also going to have some social media aspects to it as well, as I remember from the presentation they gave. So there may be some other opportunities there as well to get into. I think that the more input and more community comes together, the better the plan will be in the end. But and I would say the 14 people, and Marilyn, you can speak to that being on the board after the fact, but you were part of that team, right?
I was not.
You were.
No, I just complained about it.
Okay, well, I was thinking there was something, I thought you were on the original one. My God.
People can put themselves in these meetings.
Yeah. I think what we'll try, the focus groups will really help to kind of get them on footing in terms of all the different players within Parks and Recreation in the community and the arts and culture area. Now that we have that embedded in as well. And then to me, the public meetings is when they usually roll out kind of the thinking that they have from all the meetings they've kind of brought up. And then they'll have those public meetings that kind of say, okay, here's what we learned. And then it's more discussion from there. And then that committee will help keep them on track, for the
now
plan.
that the city has an engagement position,
Right.
I think all these things are really planned out pretty well. Some on that group that's looking at the boards and commissions, and she's really been very helpful in terms of the engagement process.
Yeah, and the ballot is
Yeah.
engagement manager. And
Yes.
she's developed systems within the city to make sure that we reach out, especially to populations that often are not heard from as
You
well.
finally mentioned what I was trying to get to, was how are we going to be making sure we're reaching everybody in this community? Because I think, I appreciate bringing up the things that I'm involved in, but I think it's way beyond me, and it's.
I wasn't bringing those.
You just looked, I was like, yeah, okay, kickball. The
other piece is I see us tabling at like
there.
East Lawrence Center and
Perfect.
at the
That's-
centers and the places that people are
Yeah.
coming. So,
Okay, I just want to make sure
we're.
if you wander in and you check in and, to use the rec centers, how are you going to know that there could be an opportunity for you to speak up? And you might just be one person who just comes and does one thing at one of our spaces, but their voice is just as important as any of ours up here.
And I think of
And so-
the kids too.
Yeah, 100%.
Especially
Yeah.
East Lawrence, because there are kids that use that facility every day after school.
Perfect.
And so I think that's important that they have a voice in all of this as well.
Well,
Jackie, let me just reiterate too, or not reiterate, but also we were very conscientious about that with the steering committee and the application. So we made sure that steering committee really represented a range of diversity from age and ethnic background, racial background, LGBTQ, all those things. So I think we covered pretty much, with 13 people, you can only get so many, but really wanted to hit that mark. And I say this to the Art Commission too, part of your task is to make sure that we get, because oftentimes we can send out information, but if somebody doesn't get an invitation from a representative of their own group, they're less inclined to want to come. So that's another thing, is to make sure if you're working with any group, to reach out to them and say, you are invited. That really helps. So thanks.
Thank you.
And I wanted to bring up one other thing too, is that because the health department is not a city department, and really the only connection the city has is through funding. But we all know the relationship between public health and Parks and Rec is pretty tight. And so I'm on the steering committee, and I'm going to do what I can to try to get the health department involved in this whole thing. They have all kinds of data about the health conditions of people in various parts of the city. So I think all that will be very important.
It's great. Thanks, John.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I guess I'm the chair. Okay, let's see. Board member concerns?
I have a couple of questions, John. I just have one, to be honest with you. I got some, and I don't know who, but I've had people, this is budget time, and things came out last Friday, and a lot of people asked me questions that I couldn't answer. So I just took them down, and I don't want this to take long. But you figured out, if I've been here long enough, I'm a bottom line budget guy. Bottom line, just because I come from the educational world. And I think this kind of comes back, Eric, and you may not have answers, but here's some things, and I want to do, and I had a lot of questions about the golf course comment that was made by the city manager of reducing funding. Lots of people called me. I went out today to the golf course and talked to the pros that handle all that stuff. And I got some numbers here that I want this committee, I want the people that are watching, and I hope the city commission and the city managers listening, because I don't know what they're going to do or how much they're looking at cutting. But when I'm talking to numbers, and I've seen numbers now for over 5.5 years on these, just being on the advisory. So I've seen a budget grow, meet it, go over it. And I'm looking at this golf course. This thing is an asset, not a liability, just because of the amount of money that comes in and the amount of people that use it. So I asked some people, if that golf course is losing money, I think I would see that if they wanted to take something away. But they're going to make 1.5 to 1.7 million this year. I know 4 years ago, the budget was 800 to 900,000. Now that's up. They're going to set records on total number of rounds, driving range. 50 to 70,000 people come to Lawrence to play in that place. 50 to 70,000. That's a lot of people that pay money. And I'm just thinking, the number one thing I learned, and I'm not a business guy, you know that, you can tell that. But if something's an asset, why would you take something away from it? Not grow with it. And golf is up 13%, range is up 100%, and the prices were raised. And I was one that kind of bellyached a year ago. I'm going to tell you, it's benefited. It's huge. And so when I start looking at this, you've got male, female, kids, all ethnics, all cultures come out and use it. I talked to them. Something that concerned me when we go back, and I'm glad you mentioned something. I read something about a survey of 200 people. Now, I've not had anybody ask me about the survey. I've never seen a survey. But if they're going to make a decision based upon a survey of 200 people, that's 0.002% of our Lawrence population. And I hope thought process comes before deducting any money or taking money out. Maybe it hadn't helped. And I'm watching this, just and they handle their own concessions, and you know, I've belly ached about that. But they're gonna make 50 to 70,000 on concessions. And I know we just signed a 3-year contract with Sandor. I wonder what they'd make of SPL if they did their own. I don't know, just some things, but I know as a business plan, when something's an asset, you try to grow it instead of taking something away. And I want to stand up for the golf course because I'm that group of people, like we all have different interests. That's who usually calls me. If it's baseball, softball, what have you. But I really wanted some facts today to go public. What are your thoughts, Derek, on the future? And I know you're gone in December, but they got to make some decisions for next year. What is your long-term thought of this?
First of all, with the city manager's proposed budget going to the city commission tomorrow night, I would say it'd be appropriate for me to make some comments this evening about the budget, listen to the proposal tomorrow. And you probably read the memo and the budget on the city commission agenda, possibly.
Tell me.
It's posted online.
Yeah, but I've read a lot.
Okay. Did you read the city manager's memo on the budget?
Focused on
Budget presentation. Which covers a lot of things. It ties it to the PBB, the priority-based budgeting, and some other things. On what tier things are and service levels. I think after tomorrow, I'm more open and you email all your questions.
Okay.
I can talk about it. But I think it's premature to comment on his budget before he presents it to the city commission tomorrow.
Okay.
So
I know I've been here and listened a lot for 5.5 years.
yeah,
I've never heard a negative thing or anybody even talk about Eagle Bend. And now then I read this in the paper last Friday. Well, we're thinking about taking money away. We don't. I was caught off guard with a high fastball, I say.
what I will say, you're pulling me into this, but I will say.
Don't get in hot water.
No.
I mean, they can't fire you.
But what I will say is we looked at service levels, and I think that the adjustments may or may not even be seen in the level of service. So if you're a golfer, you may not notice anything. It may not be apparent. It may be on how well we use water. Are we being more effective? Are we improving the irrigation systems? So I don't want to get too much into it till after tomorrow. So don't think that we're getting the golf course or anything tomorrow.
Okay. Yeah.
So that is not it. But it is a priority-based budget. And it's looking at what the city manager is proposing and doing, and that's in his memo. Trying to move things from based on the strategic plan, focus on certain things that are perceived as a higher priority, and how do we adjust?
And I understand the strategic plan piece, I really do. But I hope city council and the city manager pull in the people that run that place out there and get numbers and facts before they just chill out. That's just what I want to bring out, but I want to go get my facts. So that's what they,
Yeah.
So, and I understand the strategic plan piece. So, okay, thank you. Okay.
Jackie Becker.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just wanted to, our Juneteenth celebration obviously was in South Park a number of weeks ago. And I just want to thank Parks and Rec from myself personally of just really what an excellent job Parks and Rec did to help the event happen. We did almost 3,000 people throughout the whole day, and it was just a really fantastic event. So thank you for allowing us to put a giant stage in one day in the street in a park and have a fantastic celebration for Juneteenth. So it all went really well.
Any other comments from the board? Okay, then let's move to these updates, the B-Box update.
Mark Ecker, Assistant Director. There's a report attached to the agenda, basically delineates the properties that we posted B-boxes on. So that's a continuing growth item, so which is great. It seems to be well received in the public. So,
Well, and you had asked where they were, so I asked Dr. Brooks to provide me the list, and so he did. The other question was about the contract or the agreement that runs through the 2027 year. So it's one of those long-term contracts that we have with him. So the other thing, he did email the emailed the city account saying that he wanted to provide an update. And I sent him back an email and said, are you wanting to talk to the board? So he may want to provide that next month. I'm not sure. I'm still waiting for the reply from him. So, and I think it also detailed that he had almost every square foot of the city covered by these parks and everything in the space that he was putting the bee boxes. So, and I don't know how many bees he's getting in all these things. I'm sure he probably has a number that he'll provide.
Do they get honey? Do they?
Oh, yeah.
Do they also those?
I don't know what he does with them.
$15.
I didn't think that, no.
You know what he?
So honey sticks at the concession
I
stand.
didn't think- Come on now. Marilyn with the best comments tonight.
Is there any sign, I see the list of the parks. Is there any signage at all about the bee boxes, or are we just sort of
They're there.
telling?
Well, we don't have, yeah, because he's just installed
Like
in
a really neat thing to publicize, but I guess we don't
He had
want to get ahead
requested
of ourselves.
that, Betty.
Yeah.
And some other ideas that he had, but I don't think we've had time.
We don't want people to get freaked out either.
Right. And we don't, yeah. I remember the first time people saw the e-boxes and
There
were
were a few
freaking
that
out.
were less than what I thought they would.
Yeah.
So.
So they're in these parks. It's great.
It's a lot.
I'm sorry.
There's a lot of them.
Yeah, it's a lot of them. It's great.
Could make a game out of that, so you can actually find them all.
Well,
And he talked about
I
that.
love that.
I was gonna say, being
Yeah.
an PR person, every time this magazine comes, I think, we got a story for them. You know, this could be a good story.
Oh,
Really.
I agree. And I'm not worried about making honey sticks, but I think that's a cool idea. And I just,
And an example of collaboration with the university, or just having to use those groups.
So there's more coming.
okay, recreation update.
All right. Lindsay Hart, Assistant Director. Again, most of the information is in the recreation report.
Got an echo.
He's got an echo.
What happened?
I don't know.
Okay, I don't know. We'll try it. All right, I don't hear it anymore. One thing I did want to point out, something that John and I spoke about a couple of weeks ago, but just how busy it's been at SPL with all the tournaments. And so we had the Bill Self camps throughout June, and that place was hopping. Now, it was really fun to see. If you were out there, you know what I'm talking about. It's loud and it's busy and it's fun. So we have had some great success there, and a lot of tournaments going on this summer. So that's always fun to see. Just a quick update on sponsorships. We continue our monthly meeting with the staff task force to work on sponsorships, and working on some brochures that we're going to get updated with our new look and feel with the new logo, and continuing to get our opportunities out there for signage and banners and things like that at the different fields and facilities. So we keep just slowly building and working on that each month. So hopefully we'll have some new opportunities coming out soon. And then revenues, I know, John, you just mentioned the golf course. So just in general, our department revenue through the month of June was 2.7 million. That's up. It was 1.8 million a year ago at this time. So we're doing great. Numbers are looking really good. Revenues are doing good.
Just a quick question. Is that due to the price increase or more kids involved, et cetera?
I think it's a combination of both.
Okay.
So I think we're definitely seeing the participation numbers are going up, and I know Roger usually tracks that pretty good. And I know the last few months we have seen the beginning of each month, numbers are definitely higher. So that in conjunction with price increases is definitely showing this increase. So we feel really good about where we're at. We're really on track to hopefully hit kind of our updated goal for 23 that we set earlier this year. So
And fall enrollment. August
1st, yes. Fall enrollment will take place August 1st. It is election day, but hopefully people can make arrangements and still get their
So that'll be the last kick.
How do you get that, excuse me, John Wazik Advisory Board, how do you get that information out to all? I love your comments about everybody. I know you have addresses and emails to past participants. How do you get that out to everybody?
Right. Well, I mean, we do social media. That's the big piece.
Yeah.
We do news releases, although we're kind of changing the format there. our website has the newsletter that we do, a monthly newsletter to all the access card. Now, again, yes, the people with the access card do receive it, and they get told what programs are going on every month that are upcoming. And, in terms of, we look for, we tried to get in the schools for years and they've kind of kicked us out, but we've tried to send stuff home with the kids. But in terms of programming, a lot of them it's word of mouth. And then also the social media, we have bought ads in the paper. We haven't done as much of that in recent years. We have the radio that we've gone on. We've had the radio show for several years, and they're talking about bringing that back. So we're working with the city because we are looking at our new voice as a city more so than just Parks and Recreation. So we'll have a piece to that going forward as well for the radio.
And I go into the schools because that's my business.
Yeah.
I'm going to be very careful to ask this. It's a simple email to the art director and go out to elementary kids, because right now we need kids involved to do things. Not
yes, and we do. I mean, Julie Boyle and I have had a conversation many, many times, and we used to be able to, have our flyers go home with them, and they basically said no more paper coming in. So they do have something they send out to the teachers that we do get on, letting them know about events and things. So once the school starts, we'll be a part of that again. So school is very important, but it's hard to get in there, and because the kid sees it, but it's really the parent that needs to say this stuff.
Well, they were just getting inundated.
Right. Oh, I totally understand. Yeah, and we actually were trying to put together. I was putting together an article that combined all of our stuff and even people from the outside too, because we had a community page that we could use, and then that was going to the school. We even had volunteers that would hand them out. I had it all set up, and they just said no, we're not interested.
And that's true. The paper, cutting trees, but we have not social. We have electronic.
Right.
I mean, it's a matter of touch.
So that's where once we get an email, we can do a lot with an email. Once we have it. And there are 30,000 households in our database. So we've got a lot of households in it. So we just need to make sure it's updated and get the emails correct. So we do get some people that use the example.com, which is a fake
But the
email address.
instructors are pretty good at telling us when to register too. That's good. Okay, arts and culture.
We started talking about this before everybody arrived, but everybody has one of these. So Friday, June 30th, final Friday, I led a sculpture walk, which I love doing and have done now since 2015. I'm always so impressed by the hardy group of people that show up on a 98 night. Say, I want to go for a walk downtown, but about 35 people showed up. We had a great time, walked the whole thing. Many artists were present to talk about their artworks. And John actually turned me on to an idea that we've been doing, which is, if you look on the back, on the bottom, we have an app. So you can download this AutoCast app, OTOCAST, for free. And if you have that app, you can look at all of our sculptures, including some of the leftover ones that we spoke about earlier. But also, if you happen to find yourself in New York City or San Francisco or Phoenix or any number of other cities, you can also use that app if you want to go do tours. What's great is the guy that does this, I've known him for years and seen him grow this, includes audio with each work. So like a museum tour, you can actually, in most cases, you can actually hear that artist talk about their artwork in addition to seeing the picture. And that way too, we can be more equitable, and people that may not be able to physically get out and for these artworks can actually see them online as well. So it's been a lot of fun, and I'm glad that we shut this down during COVID since the first year that they're fully doing it.
My garden was on the Master Garden this year. And so a former student of mine and me, we put together a tour, and it's at johnsgarden.info.
It's great to see how these can be used for different purposes.
Yeah. johnsgarden.info. It's cool. Well, Porter, that's great. That sounds good. You know what?
We do this tour. Why don't you do the tour more?
That's something that keeps coming up, and actually I'd love to do it in cooler weather and
Yes. Right.
so, and every year I kind of plan for it, and then pandemics and things like
Yeah.
that happen, but no, I plan to do that. And,
Okay.
you know, honestly, if there was any group that said, hey, we really like to do a tour, I'd certainly make arrangements to do that with someone. Because we now have a good map. It took us 90 minutes to do the whole tour. We can certainly modify that as well. So, and also just a reminder, the Cultural Arts Commission meeting is this Wednesday night. They're meeting on the second Wednesday of the month at 7:30. So if anybody's interested in that.
I wonder if Van Gogh would be interested in the tour.
Yeah. I'd love to do that.
That would be good.
Yeah, that'd be great. And yeah, I have a lot of information and background about what these people did. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Parks update?
Mark Ecker, Assistant Director. I'll just give you some updates on some of our projects. Some of you may have seen around the community. Lions Park, the splash pad over there is basically done. We're waiting on one piece of equipment that was on site that is no longer on site, if you get what I'm saying.
Ooh.
So the chlorination was removed. So we're waiting on that to be the contractor to get that back in stock and get it installed. Once that's in, we're probably going to do an opening of that and hold off on the playground. So we didn't want to open this tear up and right in front of it to put a new playground in. So I think we'll probably run the splash pad through maybe September, then come back in and put the playground in. So we'll phase that in a little bit, but we already have the playground on site ready to install. We just have to get the installers over there. So that's fun and exciting. East Lawrence Center, if you haven't been by there, they have a brand new parking lot. So we resurfaced that last week. So that looks really good. That Prairie Park parking lot. So this is the east side of Prairie Park. We're also going to be resurfacing that whole lot. So you can see they've done some of the concrete work. They haven't finished the rest of it. That's probably next week or two. So those are not exciting stuff, but necessary stuff. On the parking lot theme, Eagle Bend, we finally got striped. So we did that project last year in the parking lot. We just got the striping done just recently. So that's big. Out at Eagle Bend also, we're working on a kind of a tree removal project. Just touring around the course, you'll see 8, 9, 10 dead trees that are kind of in significant spots that kind of impact the look of the golf course. So working with forestry and the golf maintenance staff, so we're trying to get those scheduled to get them out of there. And that's just a little bit of a personal pet peeve of mine that just looks like we don't care if we leave the dead trees standing there. So that's important.
Mark John from the advisory board. And is that different than, I can't remember his name, the trees they remove so you get air? You know, that's a different thing, isn't it?
Right. So like behind number 9 green this last winter, we did quite a bit of clearing in there to get air circulation into that green, but we also had probably 30 dead trees in there. So every winter we kind of target areas where we want to circulate air better, especially to the greens. So there's probably 3 holes where the greens are kind of tucked in this wooded area that makes it really hard to grow grass when it's 100 degrees. It just sits there and bakes. So yeah, this is different. So a little bit of this is emerald ash borer, is getting some of the ash trees that are in the native areas. And then some of it's just like behind number 18 green, there's a huge dead tree that's just, you know, it's one of our picturesque holes, kind of signature holes, but then it's dead tree. So forestry and golf maintenance have been working together. They'll get some of that out. I also want to work with them this winter on some of the fairways. If you're on fairway, you should be able to get the green. There's some of the areas where the trees have actually encroached over the fairway. So we need to pull those back, big hedge clipper idea. But so that's an ongoing project. Another fun new project that we're working on. We're working on driving range tees. So what John mentioned earlier is our use of the driving range has just gone through the roof. And a little bit of that is all the high schools and college teams that are practicing out there. So if you can imagine, you put, 6, 7, 8 teams out there all practicing wedge shots. They take a chunk of turf every time they take a shot. So what we want to do is try to put in some artificial turf tees on the back of the tee, so that when we're trying to resurrect the grass, we can say, okay, you can be out, but you got to be on mats. So that'll be something we've never done out there, but a lot of the higher use driving ranges in Kansas City have that as the option. So you don't even have to close the range because the tee's bad. So we have other problems on north driving range, it has a drainage problem. So we submitted that as a CIP project, did not get funded. So we need to kind of still work on what we do besides that CIP project. And then we're working on potentially putting a south driving range in. So we used to have a driving range down where the park barn is currently built, and we took it out and we built the park barn. But because of the use, we want to be able to have the ability to say, okay, we can close north driving range, but you can still play south. So we're finding a lot of people are really interested in practicing golf, maybe more so than actually playing. So if you got an hour or two, you can go out and hit balls and don't have to commit 5 hours to it. So this is kind of getting with public trends on recreation, that I don't have all day to play golf, but I do like to hit balls, or I like to go out and putt or chip. So I think that's something that we'll just keep pushing forward.
And this is really out there. My son was coaching at North Dakota State, so we were in Fargo. It was November, December. It's not warm up there. They leveled off ground and turfed it. So they got the turf and they put some heaters. They can hit all year long.
Yeah.
Unbelievable.
Yeah. And that's the next step. So you put the rate on it. Yeah.
Really?
Actually, we have, but there's pretty high electrical demand. So then can't do it when there's snow on the ground, obviously. So you got to be able to pick the balls once you hit them. So our north range has that water retention problem. So it's, yes, that would be the long. So you put lights up and you can hit into the evening and all kinds. We can spend a lot of money out there.
You know, the story behind Eagle Bend is a fascinating story. I won't tell you the whole thing, but I will tell you that we chose an architect out of Dallas, and we were looking for an architect who could design the course that was affordable, accessible to the average golfer. And so we interviewed a couple of architects, and they wanted to do something that would compete with Albemarle and Lawrence Country Club. We're not, so we picked this third guy out of Dallas. And of course, he designed the course and so on and so forth. Some years later, I was up in Minnesota, the Iron Range. Any of you know the Iron Range in Minnesota? And it's these canyons, and they've got a golf course, set of golf courses along the Iron Range. And I played one time, and it was just the most beautiful course. And so I said, I wonder who the architect is on this. And I looked, and it was our architect.
Wow.
I thought, oh, now I get it.
And something I didn't mention was, I think you're a golfer, actually. What was it? Today's Monday. Was it like last Wednesday? They had it was college girls age PGA, free PGA tournament.
Yeah.
Is that what it was?
Yeah, I don't remember, but I remember that big tournament. Yeah.
And college girls must have been high school to college, 16 to 23 maybe, from all over the country in there.
Good.
A couple other things real quick. The borough splash pad. So we're learning what it means to own a splash pad. So as the summer goes, we have 2 spray features that are down. One of them has a broken pipe underneath the concrete, so we're waiting until the season's over for that. The other one, the solenoid that turns it on and off, burn out. So we actually we're waiting on the replacement part. But as we own it, we're starting to figure out we probably better stock replacement parts because these things turn on and off just continually. So we're learning a little bit on that one. I think the Lions one will be easier to maintain, honestly. And then couple other things we're working on. Summer shutdowns for the Indoor Aquatic Center and the Sports Pavilion. So both of those will happen in August. And there's things that we're working on. Sports Pavilion, we're going to resurface gym floors. In that resurfacing, the pickleball group has requested that we look at making higher contrast color on the lines. So when we put the line color in, we picked a color that's pretty close to the floor color, honestly, because we weren't sure pickleball was a big thing. They convinced us to be.
Yeah.
So they're looking for more contrast. So we're trying to really figure out what that is because we don't want to interfere with volleyball and basketball that are the 2 big money makers in there. So we're looking at, do we just darken up the brown a little bit? Do we go to a green? But you look at the lines and how they're configured, because we have volleyball this way, we have basketball this way, we have basketball this way, and then we have pickleball laid in across the top of them. So it's quite a little interesting problem that we have to decide before we put the floor surface down. And once we decide, we better be right, because it's going to be covered up with urethane. So that's kind of if anybody wants to play that game with us, you can come out and play color.
Have they asked you about any winter tournaments?
They are continually trying to do more and more and more. So I think working with Lindsay, we're going to look at maybe striping courts at Holcomb and Community Building. We already have them in East Lawrence Center. So maybe instead of expanding on Sports Pavilion, where we interfere with tournament play, we might try to get to those neighborhood rec centers and try to get more courts on those courts.
Opportunities out there, yeah.
Yeah. So it's interesting. And, we did the pickleball on the outside of SPLs. We put four pickleball courts on the outside, new tennis courts, temporary nets.
Yeah.
We put portable nets in, which is we have never done before, but they're very sturdy, but they can be rolled on and off the tennis courts. Then we stripe the courts on each side of the tennis court. Could still be used for tennis, but then it can be pickleball also. So.
Mark, the splash pad, at East Lawrence, is there any chance of getting some shade?
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes. Yeah. No, we have that on our project.
Okay.
We just haven't gotten done. It's yeah.
Will it be on the structure or added to the structure?
No, we'll probably go on kind of the west side, because we've noticed the kind of from 1 o'clock on, it's really the hottest over there. So if we can do west side and kind of face it to shade across it. Yeah. And, people talk about we need to shade the playground too. We can spend a lot of money over there.
But not more trees, because you don't want the leaves in the wall.
Trees are actually okay. The lines is going to be interesting because you got trees all around it. So it'll actually have built-in shade. But yeah, that one over there gets pretty tasty.
It's hot.
Jackie Becker, I do have a quick question about Lions.
Mhm.
Will there be, because the parking lot's pretty rough over there on the softball, baseball side,
North side.
the north side, is that part of any of the project with all the other upgrades being done there? Or is that
It is.
waited on?
It is not.
Okay.
So in the CIP, the shelter is back in. So it was in and out, and then now it's back in. So we're going to try to replace the shelter there. That'll be right next to the splash pad playground shelter. The north parking lot needs to be resurfaced. I agree. So we basically get $200,000 a year for parking lot resurfacing. So this year was East Lawrence Center and Prairie Park. So we just kind of do what's the worst ones this year. So Eagle Bend was last year. So yeah, Lions will be on the list.
It's on there. Okay.
Sometime. I don't know if it'll make number one.
Yeah, that's as long as it's on the list somewhere, I think that's
Yeah.
a good thing. So Lions is getting so much care right now and cool things. I think, just that'll be something coming to the top that people might comment on
It's going to be
as it
cool.
gets more crowded. Yeah.
Activating that park is kind of cool because pickleball did it once. Now we put splash pad and playground in. Parking is going to start to become a premium on that south end. So people are going to have to walk from north. So it's kind of going to be interesting to activate it.
Okay, how about the director's report?
Okay. Real quick, I was going to ask Mark, see if I got a better update on Broken Arrow Shelter.
Mm-hmm.
If you can do that, and then I'll.
Yes, that's a whole project. Yeah. So over at Broken Arrow Park, we're enclosing the big shelter. So we're going to go in and put glass garage doors. So the eventual build is we want to go in and put a restroom in the corner inside, heat and air conditioning. So the budget allowed us to only get the glass up in the structure. We repoured the whole pad. So if you've been over there, the whole new concrete's done. The sidewalks around it are done. And we should be seeing structural steel going up to put the garage doors in this week. And we'll put new lights, new fans. And I'm hoping this winter we may be able to follow in and maybe do the restroom inside with our own staff. So it's going to be a really cool project when we're done with it. Something we don't have, so it's the larger enclosed shelter that's year-round use. So that we don't have that in our inventory anywhere. But it's going to be a cool project.
And the community garden, there's an ADA.
There is. We worked with the Douglas County folks on creating a ADA community garden. So it's over kind of in Broken Arrow over towards the fire station over there. So if you go over there, you'll see raised boxes, and then we put in an ADA parking stall and a sidewalk that goes over to it. So it's kind of a nice little addition.
Nice.
Okay. We've been working on the Santa Fe Depot fountain for 2 years now. And it's been one of the things I've been really kind of, let's make this really cool. This was built in 21. So they've actually got it running. Really cool. It ran for about 7 hours before somebody vandalized it. So we're down for parts. So we worked with the neighborhood and everybody else, and it was like, this is really cool and something that East Lawrence and Brook Creek both wanted, and I wanted, and I had the historical. We saved the original window sills from the 1880 depot that was plowed. So we have those. So that is one of the items that my goal is to get done before I leave, is to get benches somewhere around that fountain area. And so those will be indestructible. There's no way you can vandalize those benches. But that
You'll use those sills for the benches?
Yes. And so one of the rock workers that Crystal Miles worked with for ages came through, and he did the rock work at Constant Park, and he brought some stuff by. So it's just a matter of getting him connected, and we've got those stones stored out in Venture Park or farmland. So we'll get that moving. Probably read the story on Holcomb Park in the newspaper, Dirk Webb. Maybe a little premature. We work with lots of people. We love sponsorship and donations. And a great example is collaboration with the skate group. They raised funds within 3 months and donated an object. And so I think those boards that Dirk's working with probably meet later this fall. So we'll get some concrete ideas of what they could do. I did want to correct a few things on numbers that were inaccurate in the story. So we support a lot of kids, and Lindsay might be able to help out with the number of teams between Tacaba Ball. I think you talked rec league to us compared to Topeka, but our Tacaba Ball, so we had over 1,200 kids involved in that. I can't remember.
Yeah, I know total. I just, again, the story mentioned that I think we only had 4 10 and under teams, but Topeka had 10 or more. But just this summer, we have 16 10 and under teams. And so again, it was a little misleading. Just, I think some of the numbers were not accurate. So we just kind of wanted to at least, set the record straight, just to know that. And I think they were comparing Topeka's competitive league to our rec league. And so again, some of the numbers got skewed, but it was important to us to make sure that we actually do the DeKalb for sure is really popular. And, we have a lot of participation.
So that's exciting. And we work with groups all the time, and there's some other opportunities for partnering. So CIP, which will be a draft presented tomorrow night. And so the shelter, I think one of the commissioners, either last meeting or a couple of meetings ago, said, Lions Park, the shelter fell out. Shouldn't that have been just one big project that you do the splash pad and you do the shelter and you do the playground? Shouldn't that be a package deal? You just don't a la carte it. Well, that one didn't score well, so the park doesn't get it. Which goes to your point of we got to fix that parking lot on the north side. I think that ties to some of these other projects that we're looking at. But anyway, I did want to get something that was brought up, and it's mainly for a board discussion. I hadn't had a chance to run it by John. But coming out of COVID, and it's not mandatory that members attend in person, but it might be something that the board may want to discuss or entertain. Would be, maybe it's once a quarter, maybe it's once every 6 months. Have a meeting where we try to get all the board members in one room. And if you can't make it, you can't make it. But that was for the discussion if you're interested in engaging in that discussion as a board.
I'm sorry, I didn't.
We will always continue to do Zoom for the public and for board members that can't make it. But would it be something the board would be interested in of having an in-person meeting where possible, maybe once, twice, or 4 times a year?
With whom?
With the so everybody's in the room rather than on Zoom.
Oh,
But that's a board question and not my thing.
Yeah, I mean, they're here, but and I know there's been times, John, that you may even see where you're wanting to interject and conversations here and you're up there and it's,
You know what else? I think that's huge. I'm a people person. And there's times that when I was on conference calls, and there were a lot of them, I didn't get to see the dynamics of people's eyes on how you react. And the communication level is so much better in person. It just is, because you can see body language, and I can whisper and ask Pete a question and not where this is, but yeah, I think that's huge for people.
Not that exact topic, but do we not have a member who's not participating? And what's the policy on that?
Is it for an excuse?
For an excuse, yes, and then it's basically termination of them.
And so can that process happen, and can we get a replacement?
So yeah, we just need to check the attendance, but I think we should push that if there's some excuse.
Now, the mayor, I think, fills that spot.
Correct. Can we make suggestions?
Recommendations to the mayor?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's how it works, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I can suggest, but I also think they have their own mind about
Yeah.
what they think needs to be added. So it's not, I think we could suggest, but it's not a done deal. Our suggestions would be.
Yeah.
And to me, it's more about getting people to sign up to volunteer.
Yes.
That's really what we need to do. And
Yes.
what I'd ask the board to do is, if you know people, have them fill out that form that's online, and I can send you the link to volunteer.
If they know there's a vacancy, and I've gotten emails from people before because they knew there was a vacancy, but haven't publicized there's a vacancy.
No, there isn't a vacancy right now. So.
I think it's good to make sure everybody's active, because we're all busy and we all miss from time to time, and not have a quorum at every meeting.
Right.
And the most diverse views is good, it seems.
And we recognize that people will go on vacation and do things. It's just a matter of, hey, I'm going to be gone tonight, but I'll be attending by Zoom, or we'll be on location where I couldn't Zoom even if I wanted to. But the communication is key. Back to Roger and some other people that aren't here tonight did communicate and just say, hey, I'm sorry, I won't be able to make it.
Yeah, that I'm fine with, and keeping it Zoom. But if, I'm more talking about somebody who's been appointed and doesn't participate.
Right.
Yeah, there's actually going to be some guidelines. This boards and commissions is going to make some recommendations on that as well.
New requirements or
Yeah, like require it'll be like there's going to be supposed to be an orientation for new board members. It's supposed to be like if you miss X amount of meetings, that kind. So we're developing policies as well as our practices, as well as trying to reconfigure.
John, when you said that, keeping the piece that I didn't do, because I was 6 years ago, there's something really big for board members. There was a bus tour.
Yeah.
Somebody took new members around to see everything, because now when we get talking about, when Mark talks about this or that, I have to pull up. I just doesn't come to my head.
Right.
That's really valuable for new people. And I didn't get it because I didn't have the time.
Yeah, we continue to do that, and there have been times.
Mark drove me around.
There have been times when we've made a meeting of a bus tour, even just with everybody, just to kind of reorientate them to different pockets of town that you may not be, familiar with or go to as well. And we might want to look at doing that this fall. Potentially.
Well, one of the sorry.
We could all try the new vert ramp.
I was up there last week.
I'm gonna get that on video.
No,
And we'll have EMS standing on.
Sam can do it. That'll be all Sam. Sam can show us how.
You could be a demonstrator for the vert ramp if you want.
Because you have to escape to get up to it,
Yeah.
so. Jackie Becker, I would love for us to work to try to have maybe a quarterly or something, nothing too demanding to be in person, but I agree. I think it would be, it's good to see you. It's been a very long time, in person. And so, I mean, I would say it's something, if they are working on new guidelines, if it's possible, I would certainly be in support of that, to try maybe a quarterly. If you can make it in person, great, And then tie in with a bus tour too. Why not?
I also want us to think about, as we think about the composition of the board, I'm into this health department thing. I'd really like to see a member of actually a staff person from the health department be on our board. We just got to try to make more connections there. It just doesn't make sense to be. We're so separate now, and it's just an organizational thing. It's not a.
But John, when you came on, you brought on a piece that was huge. I thought 3 years ago, was it? You brought the city government piece on. You've been on the commission, you've been on the mayor. And I told my wife the first night we got home, you think different because you've been in that. And if you look at all of us, Marilyn was one of the, I think we came on together. I'm not sure.
You might have been before me, but
we all have different interests, and that's what makes a good committee. If we all thought the same way, we get nothing done. But you bring a piece that I never thought of, and it's made me think differently. I bring the athletic piece because I'm not real smart in the arts and cultures, which I'm not afraid, but I want to learn.
Yeah.
But I think, more diversity we have from pieces, the better it is for the community.
So is there an agenda item that we need to consider?
We can bring it up as for the next meeting, and then have a vote. And if you just want to plan something informally for quarterly, you could pick the last month, just a suggestion of the quarter. So next quarter would be September, and then the next quarter after that would be December. So maybe it's the last quarter, which would also. Roger, when they bring on a new board member, will it be in December or will it be January?
In January.
So they wouldn't be here till December.
31st, right?
Okay, yeah.
And sometimes it even lags because they don't get appointed. But I don't think that's going to, because when do they switch mayor? Do they switch it the first of the year now?
I thought they changed it though to December on the mayor. I thought they
December.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, in December. Yeah, so then hopefully that person will appoint board members shortly. I mean, again, it gets a little bit dicey. Yeah, well,
Every mayor's been a little different.
right. It depends on who's going out and who's coming in and how that, So
vacancies are just held open until
they
the time of year when they.
exactly. It's at the will of the mayor. We've had vacancies that have lasted 5-6 months before. So it gets to be a little tricky. When we had the 5-person board, it got really tricky to make sure we had a quorum every time. So
John, it's your call or the boards, whatever you'd like to do. We could have a discussion in July or
August. This is
August, yeah.
Somebody must already be vacationing. I don't know.
What would our topic be? Or specifically, what would we be?
Or yes, if there's a consensus, you all want to be here in person, you just all show up in person that selected month of the quarter. If you think that.
So a quarterly, like a requirement, every quarter we designate a meeting where we want everybody to be in person.
Preferred, yeah. Yeah, preferred.
Oh, preferred.
Yeah.
Oh,
The way to do it would be Marilyn Hall, another way to do it would be to plan the agendas so that if there's something that really requires a meaty board discussion, it would be good to have
people in.
the line. I don't know if you can require it though, because things come up. I mean,
People
some of
that
my absences I didn't know until that day. I just can't come. So.
And then we do have Zoom. So, I mean, some folks, I know we're traveling and things and they can on Zoom and be a part of the meeting. So that's kind of the purpose of
It's
this.
more about highly encouraged, maybe
Right.
this meeting, if you can, try to make it. You pick that day.
Have snacks.
John Lossing invited board.
Yeah.
I remember 6 years ago, we only had 5 board members when we started, when I was on. And we went to 9 because there were times we didn't have a quorum.
Right.
Well, I don't see any problem with
No, I saw that.
encouraging people to come in person.
Yeah, that.
I can-
be a follow-up
I can-
for people that aren't here too.
Yeah, why don't I can just draft a little something and we can send it out to the board members.
And Roger can send it out or something. Yeah.
And send it to me. Yeah.
Okay. All right, anything else there? Okay, next meeting, August 14th. And, motion to adjourn?
I move we adjourn. Marilyn Hull, I move we adjourn.
Jackie Becker, I second.
Okay, any objections? Well,
That's a good way to do it.
Lindsay, did you say about a new one?
The city
The city has a new building.